The other day I was reading Deuteronomy chapter 10, and I came across verses 12 and 13 of Deuteronomy chapter 10, and it reads, "And now, Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee? But to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul." Verse 13 says, "To keep the commandments of the Lord, and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good." The word "required" stuck with me as I was meditating on these verses. What is it that God requires of me? What is it that God requires of all Christians? Too often we hear Christians out there saying, well, the only thing God requires of me is to come to know Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. And that statement is true in the context that if you want to go to heaven, yes, you have to come to know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. There is no other way to heaven. Yet, when we receive Christ into our lives, God asks us, God does require us to live a certain way. And we find some of these ways right here in Deuteronomy 10, verses 12 and 13. In particular, verse 12. Just listen to how it is laid out. Just listen to how it's laid out. It says, what does God require of us? He requires, first of all, that we fear Him. Not with a fear of, oh my goodness, He's going to smite me, but a fear out of reverence, out of realizing the glorious being that He is. And it's through that type of reverent fear out of God that we begin to learn how to walk in God's ways. And as we walk with God, as we tarry with Him, if you will, well, guess what begins to happen? We begin to learn how to actually love God. And as we love God, and as we grow in our love for God, guess what else begins to happen? Our love for God drives us to do His things, to serve Him as He would have us to, with all of our heart and with all of our soul. And as we're doing these things, hopefully we are keeping His commandments and His statutes as we walk through life. And these statutes and these commandments, why, they're put in place for our good. And in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 15, it simply states, "If you love me, obey my commands." I wonder how good of a job are you, myself, all of us as Christians, I wonder how good of a job are we doing in loving God, in keeping His commandments, in doing what is required of us. I'm so glad to know that there are lots of Christians out there, that there are lots of people out there who have accepted Jesus Christ into their hearts and into their lives. And I'm so happy for those individuals, for myself included, to know that ultimately, when everything is said and done, there is a place saved for me in glory. And while I'm here on earth, I hope and I pray for myself and for all of us out there that we do as God requires of us, that we fear Him, that we walk in His ways, in all of His ways, and that through walking in His ways, through fearing Him, we grow to love Him that much more. And as our love for Him grows, I hope and pray that our desire to serve Him with all of our heart and all of our soul grows along with that.